Hey book besties, it's Tracy. Welcome back to Love Your Shelf. It is hot, and so I do have a fan going so that I can do this video. I hope it doesn't get annoying. I'll try really hard to speak up. But welcome back to Love Your Shelf, or welcome if it's your first time. I recently did a mid-year book freakout tag, and I'll put that in my description so that you can go to that if you want. But in doing that, I feel like there's so many books that I wanted to talk about I didn't get to talk about. I've read just over 40 books through January or July 1st. So I want to talk about a few of them, but I'm also thinking about like the videos that I want to make at the end of the year to kind of help me decide what I wanted to do. So what this video is a list of books that I've read that are between 4.6 stars and 4.9 stars, but didn't get that full 5-star. And I feel like as I've been reading more, I've become a little pickier about what I consider 5 stars. So far this year, I've had 3 5 stars. I am going to share those with you, but because I want to do my 5 stars at the end of the year, I'm just going to go through them really quick, and then we're going to talk about the 4.6 to 4.9 stars. Because of the books that I have planned on reading this year, every time I read a book, I put it in a journal entry, and I write out things I think about it, or things that made me think. That's the same thing. Or quotes that I enjoyed. And then I also give it what Dave Portnoy calls no rookie numbers. There are a few, like I think there is actually one 4.5 that I'm like, ugh. But I go through and I'm like, did I like this book? I think this book is between a 4.75 and a 4.9 or something. And then I look at what I rated other books and I'm like, did I like this book better than that book? So there is 2 books in here that both got 4.8. But almost no other books have the same. But I read these 2 4.8 books back to back, and I loved both of them in totally different ways. So we'll talk about that. So I'm going to talk about my 3-star or my 5-star really quick, the 3 that I have. The first one, these are in order that I read them, is Parable of the Sower, which I did talk about in my last video, my mid-year book freakout, but I accidentally held up Parable of the Talents. So whatever, that's my bad. But Parable of the Sower is the first of the 2 books, and it was phenomenal. The second one is We Are Okay by Nina LaCour. And the third one is The Boys in the Boat by Daniel James Brown. So those are my 3 5-star books, but we aren't going to talk about them. Just know they're 5 stars, and if you are interested in hearing what I want to say about them, I do talk about 2 of them in my mid-year book freakout. The Boys in the Boat, I'm going to talk about when I do my big book summer wrap-up. I'm reading 15-ish. A 16th book got added, but some books might go off. So a 15-book like big book summer of books that are 400 pages or more, and I'll leave a link to that too in case you're interested in there. And I have till Labor Day to finish those, so we are about halfway through that, and I have read 7.5 of the now 16 books that I chose. I chose 15, and then I just finished a book for book club that was 422, so it's any books with 400 pages or more. So yeah, anywho, now we're going to talk about the books that I have rated between 4.6 and 4.9. So the first one is 4.89 for me, so it's the closest to 5-star without being one, and that is Parable of the Talents by Octavia Butler. So this is the second book to Parable of the Sower, which I did give 5 stars. The second book is harder. Like, it is rough. It's written by the daughter of the main character in the first book, and it talks a lot about how she had wished her mom had chose her over the community that her mom built. And it also tells you about her mom's life after she started building the community, and it is heartbreaking. Like the whole story is heartbreaking, but it is so incredibly good. It didn't hit at 5 stars for me because I just don't think you can get better than Parable of the Sower. Like, when I looked at it, I just couldn't rate it the same. I don't know what it was, but Parable of the Sower for me, probably because it was so new and it wasn't as rough as this one. There's a lot of triggers in both, but this one has a few more for sure, I feel like. Well, maybe not. Just different triggers that hit me a little harder. I had to go with Parable of the Sower at a 5 star and this one at 4.89. But it is absolutely incredible. It's a dystopian tale that Octavia Butler wrote in like the 90s. But the Parable of the Sower is from like 2022 to 2026. And this is, you don't really know when, but it's later. The daughter is probably at least 18. And she talks about them growing up, her growing up, and what her life was like, and what her parents, that she knew about them through the avenues that she got information about them. And you'll hear all about that. But yeah, it is just an incredible book. Right below 4.89 is 4.85, and that is Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers. And it is hilarious. It's heartwarming. It's about a hilarious woman who thinks that there was a murderer, and there was, or there wasn't. I don't know. I don't want to ruin anything. I don't want to give away spoilers. But she ends up kind of deciding she's going to take things into her own hands because the police can't do it. And she's going to find out who the murderer is. And she has specific suspects, and they all hang out, and they all end up becoming really good friends. But she legitimately believes that one of them is the murderer, and it's so funny and super interesting. She owns a tea shop, and the murder happens at her tea shop, and she takes a Sharpie and outlines the body because she thinks she's helping the cops by doing that. It's just a really good book, and I recommend it to anyone. And it was surprising for me because I had read other things by this author that I didn't love as much or think was as funny. But this, chef's kiss, it was so good. So the next one is Curious Tides, which I also just finished recently for my big summer book club challenge, or not book club, but book challenge. And it is by Pascal Lascelles. And when I did my freak out, my mid-year book freak out, I talked about this being the most beautiful book that I have gotten so far this year. And it is stunning, but also it came in at 4.86. Oh, so it was just above Vera Wang, actually. So 4.86 is where this came in at. And it is about people that have powers based on the moon, and where it was within that. But it is actually also about so much more than that. So it's based in a college town that is magical. Like, the people that go there have magic from the moon. And it is also, there's like injustices that are happening, and there's some trauma that you don't know about with one of the main characters, and there's a secret society, and there's potentially murder and a third dimension, or a second dimension, I guess, multiple dimensions. It is amazing, and the book is beautiful, and I just really enjoyed this book, and I didn't want to put it down. And it's told by 2 different characters' main points of view. I think this really would have been a 5-star for me, but I do have multiple gripes with it. The story was really good, but the reason it wasn't 5 stars for me is because, so there's one person, her best friend and her brother are the two main characters, and the one person who is the sister and the best friend, she's missing, and they're trying to figure out what's going on, kind of. Also, they think that she's dead, so there's a lot going on with it, but I couldn't put it down. It's really good. It has a few plot twists. Some of them I could see coming, but I welcomed them. But anyway, so the reason that I didn't love it and that it didn't get the 5 stars for me is because the brother didn't seem to care through the last half of the book about his sister. And that really bothers me. Like, I can't deal. I have a very good relationship with every single one of my siblings. So when people write siblings and the siblings aren't just like top shelf siblings, like, I can't deal. Not that he was a horrible sibling. I just feel like the friend cared more about the sister than he did, and it really bothered me. So, yeah. But all in all, it's a really good book. It's very interesting. She's coming out with a part 2, and I can't wait to read that one as well. So the next 2 are the 4.8s that I read back to back. So the first one's also for Big Book Summer. That is Lonesome Dove. It's a 960-page Western epic, which isn't something I would normally read. And at first, it was a little crass. I had to get into it, and it took me like 400 pages. And I was reading it every day, and it wasn't like boring. Like, I was still interested, but I didn't start really caring about the plot and the characters until about 400 pages in. And then what the author did with the other 560 pages was like, I could not put it down. I needed to know what was going on. And it was an amazing, epic Western. So that was cool. And then the other one is Thunder Song by Sasha Texeblue-Lapointe. I probably said that wrong. I'm very sorry. She says it. Yeah. Anyway, she wrote Red Paint last year, which was also incredible. This is essays about just being Native American and the struggles that they have had to go through with lots of different things, but mainly finding their voice and telling their history and taking care of and finding their Native American women who go missing and get murdered and get raped, like, on a unfortunately regular basis, and people aren't giving the same press isn't giving the same like talk about it as they would for white women, and it is so good. Like, I love everything that Sasha says. In the mid-year book tag, we had like a fictional character you have a crush on, but like, I legit have a crush on this author. She's incredible. I will forever get anything that she writes because I just love her perspective. I love the way she tells stories. She is incredible. The next book is a book that I picked up on my International Book Crawl Day. And that is It Lasts Forever and Then It's Over. And this is by Anna DeMarkin. And it is about a zombie-ish. Like, it's essentially a zombie. She is essentially a zombie. And it is super poetic. And it takes such a twist at the end that I'm honestly in love with. And even though I put this at 4.77, like, I think about this book all the time still. It's like hauntingly, devastatingly beautiful in the best way. So if you want, it's short too. If you are looking for a book under 200 pages that you could read in a day and think about for a lifetime, It Lasts Forever and It's Over is 100% something that I would recommend to you. The next one is 4.7, and that is the first book of a duology that is also, like, I'm pretty sure this is less than 100 pages, but it's definitely less than 150, so it's right in between there. I read it in a day, and I never read anything in a day because it's hard for me to have time to do that. But it is Silver in the Wood by Emily Tesh, and I've never read anything by her. I went into it not knowing what to expect. It's just a really good queer fairy tale, and it gave me something I wasn't expecting, and that is why I gave it a 4.7. Then I have 4.69 and 4.64. So there is a book in between that at 4.65, but we'll go back to that because these 4.67, sorry, the 4.69 and the 4.64 that I have are books 2 and 3 in the Broken Earth trilogy by N.K. Jemisin. Actually, let's do it this way. This is book 2, this is book 3. So I gave book 2 4.69 and I gave book 3 4.64. The way this book ends is really good, but I loved the second book because of the characters' perspective that it started writing about. It wasn't in the first book, and although it is in the third book, I just really loved her perspective in the second book. It has 2 different main characters, a mom and a daughter, and I really loved the daughter's perspective in the Obelisk Gate, and that's why it got a little bit higher than the Stone Sky for me. But in general, both of the parts of the story are really amazing. And then last but not least, for sure, I have it 4.65. And this book I originally rated lower, and it took me a while to get into it, but I had to go back and rate it higher because I think about it all the time now. So that does happen to me. And even though it took me a while to get into it, when it was over, I did not want it to end. And that is Confessions of a Bookseller by Sean Bythell, who is a guy that owns a bookstore. This is a true story, and it's nonfiction, and he really just starts on January 1st and goes through his entire year of what happened in his bookstore. And it's so cool because it's like, to me, this book was like if Chandler Bing from Friends, because their personalities are similar, they're very sarcastic and they kind of complain and they have issues in the love department. So like Chandler Bing before Monica, if he had a bookstore, or if Friends hung out at a bookstore instead of a coffee shop, like that is what this book is. And it does start off slow, but there's a few characters that get introduced that I freaking loved, and it was so fun to read. And it's interesting, like it's an interesting take. I don't know what it takes to own a bookstore, and so that was pretty cool. Also, he's writing this while he's going through a breakup of someone that could potentially have been his true love if they had made changes to make things work. And so he writes it in a place of semi-heartbreak too, which he doesn't recognize, but he leaves it open for interpretation. And I really appreciated that too, even though it's not part of owning a bookstore. It still is, because you still have to go to work and do the things you need to do to keep your business afloat while you're going through these things. And I feel like in the summer it definitely gets better and easier for him, and that's probably why it picks up more. But those are my top 10 books that are 4.65, technically. 4.6, because there's a 4.64 in here. So 4.6 to 4.9. And I hope that you guys pick one of these up and find something that you like within them. And what are some books that weren't 5 stars for you, but that were really good? Because I still want to talk about those. I still want to know about those. I still want to read those. Yeah, thank you so much for coming to my channel. Like and subscribe if you want. Thank you for coming to Love Your Shelf. Have a wonderful day. Namaste.